I'm out here on the beach in Wilmington, North Carolina on a little bit of a foggy morning, and what I want to do is prove to myself with real results on the ground, not esoteric discussions of components, that the money I spent on these T-Zack mid-price rods is worth it. Now you may remember that last year I complained that I broke the tips on 3 of these Cadence fishing rods. Now I think I paid $120 for this, and so to break 3 of those was really painful. So I invested in these T-Zack rods. The Supreme cost $300, the Classic cost $200, and what I want to do is prove to myself that that investment, that upgrade from inexpensive to mid-price was worth it. And so today what we're going to do is casting. I want to see what casting distance I can achieve on each of these rods using the same reel, same line, and same weight, and then compare that to what I could achieve on the similar Cadence rods with, and I'll change out the reel, with the similar characteristics. Now all these rods are 7 foot 2 inches tall. They're all medium power and fast action, so there is no difference associated with how they perform. So let me get out there, I'll do the base case, I'll cast it 3 times, and then we'll move to the T-Zacks, and I'll explain a little bit more about why I put my hard-earned YouTube money into these 2 rods in this particular brand. Well, here's one key difference right now. Check out that tangle on my second cast around that rod guide. The T-Zack Supreme has the Fuji rod guides that prevent this type of tangle. So there's one clear on the ground example of why this rod is better than this rod, which makes me feel a little bit better because of the money I spent on this. This is interesting. Here's where my Cadence rod ended up, and up there is where the T-Zack Supreme ended up. So the first piece of this test, and I'm going to compare the Supreme and the Classic versions here in a minute, has demonstrated that it's well worth it upgrading from inexpensive to mid-price. Let's continue with the torture test. Why did I go with the T-Zack brand to invest my hard-earned YouTube dollars in? Well, you probably have a rod that's manufactured by this same company with somebody else's brand name on it. They've been in the OEM rod manufacturing business for the last 20 years. So it was logical to me anyway, being that I'm a fairly cheap individual, is let's cut out the premium you pay for a brand name and just go for the quality rod. That's why I selected the T-Zack brand. Before I do the actual distance test, let's take a quick review of the high-level characteristics of these 2 rods that may impact how far I can throw them. Looking at this beautiful T-Zack Supreme, I don't think I've ever seen a prettier rod. It's made out of 40 ton plus 46 ton graphite with 4-axis carbon fiber for increased elasticity, higher modulus, and to make it ultralight with exceptional strength, durability, and sensitivity. I mean, I can just feel it, even without the reel on here. On the other hand, the T-Zack Classic model, which is less expensive, is made out of Japanese Toray 30-ton modulus graphite, and it has a cloth woven outer layer for increased strength and durability. It's clearly a little bit heavier than this one, and when we look at the seat, they're pretty much the same distance down, so leverage should not come into play here. Let's get going on the test. Here's where my 3 casts landed. They're all pretty close together, so that's good. That tells me that I was at least consistent in how I was casting. So I'm going to take one of these, I'll put it in the middle of where all the casts occurred, and I'll use this marker to measure against the other rod. This is pretty interesting. Cast 1 there, 2 there, and I got another 10 feet on that cast right there. But when you look at these 2, they're directly on line with the average of the T-Zack Supreme. So I'm going to call that one an outlier and say that, at least for my casting ability, there's no real difference in terms of distance between the two rods. Well, that was interesting. They both cast at about the same amount of distance. And now, this next week, I'm going to take them out of my kayak and we'll use them out on the water to be able to test ease of use. Do I wear out using one versus the other? Can I get accurate casts? And what is the sensitivity? Because I'll be using some bottom rigs, I'll be using jig heads popped along the bottom where you have to feel the most sensitive bite to get a hookup. Stay tuned for part 2 of this test.